Hello, I'm Chuck Wooden, and I'm also joined by my co-host, Monique Melanson-Hunter, and you're watching the Veterans Corner.
Thank you, Chuck. If you haven't watched the Veterans Corner before, we're a show dedicated to our veterans, their families, and those in our community that support our veterans.
We have actually, I always say special show, and I think that's because all of our shows are special.
It's true.
Every time we have a topic, every single time, I think since we've been doing this, over 120 shows.
Yes, quite a few.
And, you know, I mean, every show is special.
You've always made me feel special, too.
Yeah, well, you've been on the Veterans Corner so many times. I think we should name it after you. little humor during the segment today.
Gerry Wright Corner. Yeah.
Actually, while we go any further, we will say that Gerry will be filling in for you while you're on vacation.
That's right. I feel very confident with my replacement while I'm away.
It'll be Chuck and Gerry.
Yep.
Is that wasn't that a cartoon? Or Gerry and Chuck,
let's hope not.
But anyways, let's get back on track. We're going to be talking about the VA today. It's something that's been in the news quite a bit, actually for years. And we have a special guest with us today that if you watched the last show, Bob was with us. Bob Brill. Bob is actually from Elmira, New York. He drove over 4 hours to get here today to be on this show. He's been following the show for quite some time. We've texted back and forth on Messenger, and it's an absolute honor to have you here. It really is.
Well, thank you and Gerry, because it's an honor watching what you guys do, because you're putting a point of view that's not normally seen. And you're bringing the facts out to what veterans really need to wake up to today to get the benefits that they deserve and the quality of care, because we want future generations of veterans to follow in their fathers' footsteps. And if we get treated right, we'll make sure that our children follow in our footsteps and make sure that they're treated right. And this is what's going to make America strong, is by having strong veterans and strong work ethics and strong values with people like you in this show, pushing this message back across the country and saying, hey, do what's right.
You know, when we started this show, I know we need to get moving here, but just the fact that you're here, someone that lives over 4 hours away, that's how far-reaching this show has gone. It's actually it's throughout the central part of the country. Yeah. Gulf coasts, we got people that follow this show there. So I mean, as we go on, it's our message is getting out there. It makes it worthwhile for us,
so true.
Monique, myself, and the crew, you know, for what we do. But and of course, to Bob's right, we have Gerry Wright. Gerry's been here a number of times talking about Agent Orange. We just finished up a 3-segment series on Agent Orange, and I think we had CS Gas in there. You were with us on the 3rd segment, Bob. But Gerry's a retired first sergeant from the United States Army. He served with the 19th Combat Engineers from 1969 to 1970 in Vietnam. He is an Agent Orange survivor. He was inducted to the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame in 2014. He is also a life member of the following VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations: American Legion, VFW, DAV, and once again, I don't have it written down here, but
the AMVETS and the VA.
Yeah, AMVETS, that's right. I forgot the AMVETS the last show. Yep. And the Vietnam Veterans Association of America, life member of all those. And Bob's a United States Navy veteran who served in Vietnam from 1966 to 1969.
Yes, sir.
Do you guys want to give a brief overview of, you know, where else you were and the time that you were in? Bob,
basically, we went into up and down the coast of North Vietnam as a destroyer. We were about 1.5 miles off the coast. We went through 24,000 rounds of 5-inch shells and 15 gun barrels and 4,000 rounds of 3-inch. And our Captain Holmes is still alive. We were honored to be back. Our ship, the USS Edson, is out in Saginaw Harbor today, and it's a museum ship you can tour through. And that ship was labeled as Grey Ghost and a Top Gun. She was nominated Top Gun by the people that were shooting. We had a very good ability to put them where they needed them and when they needed them.
That's great. That's great. Gerry, for those that have not seen you in the past.
Well, I was a combat engineer in Vietnam. I worked with explosives. I was a 50 caliber gunner on a rapid patrol for quite a while, heavy equipment operator, and a whole new appreciation of the U.S. Navy when the U.S. New Jersey pulled up alongside our coast and just worked out for 3 days. Between the smoke and the sound, I never felt so safe in my life
Battleship.
to have the Jersey out there working out and see the shells go over. It's amazing. You can stand there, you hear the flash, the bang, and you wait, and you see the shell go over, and you count 15, 20, 30, 40 seconds. Then you know how far it was away they were shooting. But I had the opportunity at one time to set up Big Bertha. And Big Bertha was a 175 millimeter weapon. And I had to pull it up a hill with a bulldozer, and their fire mission was immediate. And the only way to secure it from kicking back as it fired was I put the blade of the bulldozer on it and held it down.
Wow.
And that dozer weighed 25 ton, and every time they fired it, it moved back almost an inch every time they fired it. So it's amazing what we have.
Thank God you had that bulldozer.
Oh, yeah, thank God we had a bulldozer.
Well, you know, on behalf of the viewers, the crew here, Monique and myself, we want to thank you very much for your service to this
Thank
country.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a lot to talk about the VA.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues. Why don't we start?
All right, so Bob, can you tell us, what do veterans really think about the VA system?
My opinion as a veteran, I know a lot of veterans, the medical care the VA gives us, I think it's about 95% good. They're understaffed, overworked, and that's typical of everybody in the medical field, but the people have been super, super dedicated. The VA benefits groups, it's like a catch-22. You put in for a benefit, you don't know what it is, why it is, you get turned down, you get turned down. My latest application was for hearing, because I went in the Navy partially deaf in 1 year, come out deaf in 1 year from directing gunfire, and then about 3/4 deaf in the other year. And they said, you're only deaf because you were deaf going in, but you were deaf coming out, so it don't matter. But then on the report, it had the date on there, and they said, oh, wait a second, your hearing officer didn't date it, but it's clearly dated. And then they came back and they said, well, this and this wasn't proper, and the doctor I went to was good. But it's all catch-22, because the VA assigned me the doctor, and they said, we can't use the information we requested you to give because we gave it. Well, when you're going through these situations, like now you have situations called AFib, deafness, there's a lot of things that go in where your heart slows down, it packs up, ischemic heart disease, diabetes, all these things compound. So there's a lot more health issues that the VA is not addressing as one. And then they have what they call a fuzzy mat. So you could lose one leg, lose one arm, because you lost one leg, that's 50%, because you lost one arm, that's 50%, and then they're going to tell you that's only about 65%, but we're going to round it down to 60%.
Need new batteries for that calculator.
Yeah,
Pardon?
that's weird math.
No, they got a couple
Very
keys missing
weird
on their
there.
calculator, but
Yeah,
that's weird.
clearly.
Now the other thing is when you have a problem with the VA, they have a 1,000 number you can call in Washington, and they can't ever tell you anything except for the script that they read. There's nobody there to help you. And then they tell you to call the VA Washington President's Hotline, and then you call there. And after about a half hour on the phone, they tell you to call the 1,000 number. So then it's like a catch-22 and nobody's responsible. So when they give you a hearing note, nobody's responsible in the VA. There's no signatures, nobody to call, nobody to talk to, and you feel like an orphan child. Well, a lot of our veterans in the 60 to 65 bracket are having problems and committing suicide, as you've heard.
Yes.
This Agent Orange and dioxin from Vietnam resides in the fat cells. So as bodies start aging, they start getting skinnier and the fat cells move. So this stuff now moves up into the brain. So now we have neurological problems. The VA does not have the science to handle that. The other problem is a lot of these children and great-grandchildren have genetic defects and problems from this dioxin that we were exposed to. And the VA is saying since 1991, you were approved to be benefits because you were in Vietnam. And then in 2002, they said, well, you're not approved because we decided to change the game, but we can't tell you why. So now we have what they call the Blue Water Navy bill that went through that approved the act, but in January of this year, there was a Procopio case that the federal court decided that Blue Water Navy veterans should be covered.
Yeah.
So other than that, how do we feel about the VA? When it comes to benefits, there's no clear friend at the VA.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
And also keep in mind that the VA, the doctors there work for the government. And that's where when I took my claim to my private doctor, they said, we work for you, Gerry. The VA doctors work for the government.
We hear that a lot
Yep.
with the veteran community.
Yep.
How can the people, and of course the veterans, what can they do to make the VA become stronger, much stronger organization? Obviously, you say 95%, but there's obviously room for improvement.
But if you go to a VA medical hospital or a doctor, they do very, very good. You go to any hospital today, it's like a crapshoot.
Yeah.
They treat you for a cold and you got pneumonia.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do you hear that? But the VA is working very strong and very solid to improve their programs and processes. Would you agree with that, Gerry?
I agree, 100%.
Now, how can the veterans make the VA a stronger place? Is they've got to voice their opinions for the operation. The VA has more lawyers in Washington than you can shake a duck at. They got thousands of lawyers making $170,000 a year that are there protecting the VA's benefit. And then after the Civil War, President Lincoln came out and said the VA is there to make the man whole and his family whole again. The VA has lost their mission. Their job is to make themselves bonus money is what I feel. I can't verify that, but the numbers point to it because they're 44,000 short of full employment.
It's not like you're the only one that I've heard say this.
Right.
We've heard it on TV. We've heard it in private conversations over coffee.
Right.
It's obviously, more than an opinion.
But we have a very strong situation here. We have a senator called Dick Blumenthal in this state. I was riding in the back of an ambulance up to Buffalo in December, and I didn't know if I was coming back. Could have been a one-way trip with heart problems. But the VA says you don't have heart problems because you weren't in Vietnam and we only killed 800 people there. So I'm sorry about that. We were a mile and a half and these guns all accidentally went off every night, all night long. So Dick Blumenthal called me. And it was very reassuring to hear from Dick. And then we've had a couple conversations with Dick about what can be done. You got a great senator that's on the Veterans Affairs Committee that can take these words and audit the VA and make sure they're spending the money in a wise manner to do what they're doing. And he very much impressed me. So you're very lucky to have a senator like Dick Blumenthal.
So I guess when it comes down to it, just like we've talked in the past about the House bills and the Senate bills, it's up to the viewers
Right.
to pass the word to the not only to the veteran community. Anyone can pick the phone up.
Families, absolutely.
Well, that's the thing is that we have a bill in the House, which is House Bill 566, and the Senate bill, which is 332, and they mirror each other. There's no attachments to either of those bills, and that's to eliminate the 3 onset dates of the 14 illnesses that we have. And my question to the Congressman Joe Courtney, who helped me put this together, was how can the VA put an end date on an illness? And that's what they did.
Right.
Okay, the VA says we have 14 illnesses we can have, but 3 of those have end dates of 1 year of separation from dioxin with a 10% disability, but didn't tell us about it for 8 years. And that's what got me motivated and going.
Right.
And
It's amazing at that certain point, it just goes away.
Yeah, amazing. You got
when
that
you
right.
listen
I don't know
to
if that's the word I'd use, but
the
yes.
scientific evidence that that Bob will pull up and send to me, or Dr. Linda Birnbaum, who she works for.
National Institute of Health, and she's supposed to have a private conversation with Gerry in October.
Yes.
And I'd like to see if we could get that excerpt here, because this is the best of the best in the country that was on Gerry's video that is coming to our side to say, hey, we have the science evidence.
Yeah.
Now, 1991, this was passed as a law by Congress, President Bush. Do you know what
February
the,
6th.
do you know what the rest of the story is? Admiral Zumwalt ordered dioxin Agent Orange to be used in Vietnam. His son was a riverman. He went up on the rivercraft. His son died a terrible death to cancer. His grandson has a lot of genetic defects. That's when they started getting ready to do it. In 1991, they passed a law. But they didn't do anything for his son when he got out of the service because nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
They had no tests. They had no medical protocols. It was classified as top secret. And that absolutely almost aggravates you down to the bottom of the earth that we were poisoned in chemical warfare and our government kept it a secret and it's labeled secret. And why weren't we told? You were in the Navy.
Yep.
What do you know? Did they tell you that you were going to be exposed to chemicals?
No, not at all. And we've had this discussion before.
Yep.
You know, the old saying, you're just a number. There's a lot of things that go on. And I mean, there was a time, you know, it was a joke, but I mean, if we got sunburn being out on, out at sea.
Article 15.
Yeah, you can be written up for destruction of government property.
Yeah.
Interesting point. My skin blistered up, giant blistered in Vietnam. I was on top of the ship directing gunfire on a fire control system.
Yep.
Then when I went to Acapulco the first time on a troop transport, my skin blistered up. That was a dirty ship that just came back from Brownwater Navy, and they haven't even addressed dirty ships yet.
No.
Same thing as the aircraft planes. And then in Hong Kong, my skin blistered all up. And over the years traveling, my skin would blister all up. Now, Gerry, what's funny to that about you?
It's the same thing. I was treated for blisters and welts all over my body, my chest, my back, underarms in Vietnam. But it wasn't documented because I was treated by a first aid station or a medic, given some gold bond powder, told to keep clean. And when I applied for the chloractin skin rash in 1981, I was denied because there was no paper trail. There's no paper trail going back to say, yeah, the Army did treat you for this. So I filed in 1981, and I still have it today, and I'm treated with prednisone every 4 years to knock it out.
So I'm going to digress a little bit. So is there anything, in your opinion, that can be done to enhance the preventive medicine, program with the VA? Is there anything that they can do to help the veterans with preventive maintenance?
I think that's a great question.
We talked about that today, yes.
And you know what the best thing about that is if you have diabetes, which most of these Agent Orange and veterans do, and it's an aging disease, you could take up spin cycling or bicycle riding or walking and watch your diet and start working out and getting yourself ready to go in condition, because diabetes creates neuropathy, it creates heart problems and everything else that goes on. But who is running a program to say, hey, let's get back in shape and give you another 5 good years, maybe you're going to have 4 bad years after that, and then take a look at your medication mix. They give you, I'd hate to tell you how many pills you're taking now, but there's probably about 14 pills a day you're going to take for all these things together. Even the medications have their side effects. And the question I asked the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee Friday is, if you got prostate cancer, they don't cover bladder cancer. They're not connected, they said. Well, try peeing out of something else. It don't work.
Yeah.
This is the problems that we're having, is they're not acknowledging that. Let's take a look and maybe do some more cancer testing ahead of time and doing more preventative medicines and things that you're going to have. Is that why wait till this cancer metastasizes and kills the whole body? Let's get it when we got a shot at it. And they don't do that. They don't have any DNA testing or genetics and things that we need.
Being a sailor, one of the first things that they do is it's all preventive maintenance on all the equipment.
In the Army, we did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
you always did a piece of
you always did that. It was part of my rate to do preventive maintenance.
So on the machines, so on the parts of the boat, basically.
Well, and everything for watertight
Yeah.
doors, everything. So you don't get to that point. Well, why are we doing it? Obviously, we need to do it there, but why?
Not the personnel,
what
right?
about us?
Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left. There's like 3 questions we want to ask. Maybe we'll just touch a little bit on each one. What can be done to get the larger VSOs, like the American Legion, DAV, VFW, AMVETS, and I can go on. There's many of them. How can we get them to come together to help the veterans on a larger scale?
Can I take that easy?
Sure.
Get them on Nutmeg TV.
Yeah. And we have had a number. We've had the American Legion on. We've had the DAV on. Probably not as much as we probably should. VFW, we've had them on once. AMVETS, I don't think we have. A lot of times it's difficult to get.
But the question is, do you ask these guys when they come here, what are you doing for the veterans?
Yeah.
What are you becoming a drinking club? Are you a veterans club where veterans that come back, you're going to work together, you're going to have sports programs, you're going to have teams, you're going to have exercise. That's the things that these VSOs could do, I think.
Yeah.
Well, members of Congress have to step in and help us. That's their job. The Veterans Affairs Committee needs to, like Senator Blumenthal should step in and say, hey, I'm going to gather all the heads of these major organizations. We're going to meet in Washington, and let's see what we can do. You don't need a whole
and ask the veterans what they want, right? What do they need to
What are
be
they
healthy?
doing to help the veteran?
Right, I agree.
What is the group's help doing other than raising money for
I
chicken
agree.
barbecue? What are they doing to help the veteran?
That's actually I circled that question, really highlighted it because that's a question that we should ask when we do have them on the show.
Yep.
We got about 3 minutes left. You had mentioned the Blue Water Navy bill,
Yes, sir.
House Bill 299.
Yes.
Now that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was approved, right?
Yes.
And the Secretary Wilkie, he put a stay on that
Yes, sir.
until what, the first of the year?
Well, I got a letter that they're going to start working on it January 1st of 2020. And I can't believe anybody in the government's going to be working on New Year's that doesn't have a hangover.
Yeah. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
They have a court base with John Wells is taking them to court the first week in November. And I asked the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee on Friday again, is the VA getting ready to handle these claims in an expedited manner, or are they going to drag it out for 15 years? And they said, we kind of think so, but we're not sure, maybe kind of,
Yeah.
That's a pretty good direct answer from the.
Yeah.
So again, it's the bill is there. The problem is, it's not just for the veterans, it's for the wives and families of these veterans that die. Gerry and I work a lot of times, there's emails from people who have lost a husband or a loved one, and they're telling us terrible things, how they died of their cancer, it broke the family, and everything else, and they got no benefits.
Nothing.
But it's like 2 weeks ago, I complained because they were charging me $200 a month for my medical benefits for the medicines I take them for ischemic heart disease and diabetes and all the other things they're kicking. And it's $200 a month. But the nice thing is they offered to charge me interest with it.
Oh.
So finally I called up somewhat in an irrational mood.
Yeah.
It's like a man with PMS. And I says to him, I am aggravated. You poisoned me, you're killing me, and now you want me to pay for it.
Yeah.
So they came back and said, because you're Agent Orange designated, we're going to give you your meds free. So you
thank
do have to
goodness.
call up and get your meds.
I hate to cut you off, Bob. I mean,
Thank you.
I know we can continue to do this. We got less than a minute left.
Go for it.
Want to thank both of you for being here. Once again, for driving over 4 hours.
Thank you so
It's an
much.
honor to have you.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't respect you so much.
Thank you.
It's,
Thank you,
it's
Chuck.
a mutual respect. And Gerry, thanks. We got 30 seconds left. Why don't we thank the crew?
I want to thank our crew, Miriam Moate, Holly Williams, Brian Burney, and in our camera and our office, what am I trying to say, Chuck?
Control room.
Marie Bonelli, Lizzie Crawford, and Joe Sanborn. I felt pressure there for
There
a
we
second.
go. It's the race to the finish line with the
Yes.
time. We got 5 seconds left. So with that being said, I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. I'm Chuck Wooden.
I'm Monique Melanson Hunter.
Good night, and we'll see you next time on the Veterans Corner.